Today we're diving into a topic that's been changing lives everywhere, side hustles. Have you ever wondered why so many people are starting one? Or how that little side project could transform your finances, your mindset, and even your career? Whether you're feeling stuck, striving for financial freedom, or just looking for a way to turn your passion into purpose, this episode is for you. While starting my new podcast adventure is something I considered for about a year or two, I was just overwhelmed with questions. Where do I even start? What if I fail? But let me tell you, the rewards have been worth it, and I'm here to help you navigate your own journey. We'll explore the most common reasons people take the leap into side hustles, from financial security to personal fulfillment. But more importantly, we'll discuss how a side hustle can be a game changer for your life, boosting your confidence, teaching you new skills, and opening doors you didn't even know existed. So grab your coffee or your tea, take a deep breath, and let's talk about how to transform that what if into what's next. By the end of this episode, you'll have the tools and inspiration you need to take the first step toward building a side hustle that could change your life. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Life's Next Lesson Plan. I'm Rachel, and I started this podcast during my 29th and last year as a high school teacher. The goal of my work with Life's Next Lesson Plan, as well as my Live and Learn Patreon, is to create a connection where we are all teachers. We all have lessons and stories to share that can help others. I'm so fortunate to be able to extend the four walls of my previous classroom to an unlimited audience, where we can all learn from each other. And my guests are some of the most inspirational people with the best stories and lessons I know, which is why I want to share them with you. Their words are something everyone should hear. It is my hope that you are able to take away something from each episode to apply to your own life, whether that be a career search, path to a more fulfilling life, or new ideas on current topics. Before we launch into the steps in starting a side hustle, let's just talk about all the rage, some of the benefits, why so many people are doing this. So obviously the first one probably for a lot of people is financial. Their side hustle could provide extra income for savings or debt repayment or investment or paying for extra bills or a vacation fund or something like that. Sometimes, however, it's not really about the financial side of things. It's more just about having a creative outlet. Someone I talked to recently said, I wish I had a hobby, something that I really enjoyed that kind of gave me more purpose. And this could be exactly that, just a creative outlet, an opportunity to explore something that you love outside your day job, or just something to occupy any extra time you might have, maybe post-career or something. Also, it could fulfill perhaps a long-term goal that you have. Maybe if you start small, you could build your side hustle into something that could eventually become a full-time gig or a supplemental part-time income as you pull away from a full-time job. Also, starting a side hustle could potentially create new networking opportunities that maybe wouldn't have otherwise existed. So the side hustle can bring you into contact with new people or reignite past relationships that you had. I know this has been one of the most positive parts of starting this podcast journey is just reconnecting with people I used to teach with, people I've met in the journalism community, students who are now grown professionals and teaching me things. It's just been probably my favorite part is just expanding those relationships and reconnecting some professional and personal connections in my life that were meaningful to me. It could be another way to explore different career paths. It's low risk if it's something that's just on the side of a full-time job or something. It can be a way to dip your toes into a new path that you've always been interested in and still have the stability of your main job. And lastly, you are definitely going to diversify your skill set. Side hustles kind of push you to learn new things and build new competencies, especially if you have a sister who is in marketing, who is definitely your biggest cheerleader, but also really good at pushing you out of your comfort zone and seeing the next steps that you should take before you're ready to take them. Which can all be obviously positive, right? If you are newer to something and you learn the basics just to get it started, there are so many resources online to help you sort of fine-tune and grow in whatever area you want to explore. So now that we've kind of talked about the benefits or why, I should say, people might want to start a side hustle, let's talk about what it would take, kind of the steps to getting started. So first, you have to kind of think about your skills. Do you want to utilize your writing skills? Have you always loved graphic design? Do you love to teach but want to do it in a different platform? Do you love coding? Maybe you're really great at organizing events, or you're good at baking or meal planning. Your skills are your biggest asset. I know what I kept hearing over and over when I was contemplating starting a side hustle was, what's something people always ask you about or need your help with, or they come to you for? And I haven't exactly been following that path necessarily. Obviously, I'm able to teach a little bit, but I'd like to actually expand that side of it. But think of just what people kind of go to you for, what you're known for, or what you're comfortable giving advice about. And then I would say more so I kind of did the second thing, which is identify a passion. As part of my very long commutes I've had, I definitely have fallen in love with podcasts of all different kinds. I love listening to them. It's a way to learn in my car. It's a way to, depending on my mood, I can laugh one day. I can learn about other careers. It's just something that's really entertaining, but also educational for me. The best side hustles align with kind of what makes you happy. For me, as I mentioned already, I have so enjoyed extending the walls of my classroom and reconnecting with people I used to spend time with, who now I can share with whoever listens. We'll say the world, but whatever audience is tuning in, you don't have to be in the tabloids or on TMZ to have an important story to tell. And truthfully, if I'm being honest, I would argue it's kind of the opposite, that people who you can more relate to, who are in the trenches of everyday life with you and have really inspiring stories, either for you to listen to or you can pass on to your children or a friend you think might benefit from the story. I think for me, that has been the most fulfilling part of this journey for me. And then lastly, you can think about gaps in the market. So what problem can you solve for others? People are going to pay nowadays, especially for convenience, expertise, or solutions. And I know like the buzzword is always, what value can you provide to others to make their lives easier or even just entertain them? I lately have been foregoing music both in my car and while working out and listening to what I would call keep you company content, just sort of lighthearted podcasts, or even I've been turning on stand-up comedy because we're in the dead of winter and I think everybody can use a little light and laughter. And so I've been doing that recently when I used to kind of use music for that. So if you're unsure in this area, you can do a little bit of homework, kind of see what other people are doing. Go to Etsy, which I love Etsy. Obviously, it's just started my own shop, kind of bare bones, or YouTube. My sister introduced me to YouTube before I was ready. But holy cow, if you need a resource, it is there on YouTube. For me, I started in YouTube just to draw more eyes to the podcast, but in the future, I can see how it could be a way again to extend the walls of my classroom. And for you, it could be whatever skill people are coming to you for. This is definitely a huge platform where you can share your expertise. So once you've kind of identified maybe an area or two that you might want to explore for your side hustle, you have to kind of do some planning before you can execute. You know, it's all the questions that I had before starting a podcast. Like, where do I even start, right? So first, I think is just getting clear on your goals and just being realistic and asking yourself, like, what do I want to achieve? And this can change, of course, but like for the first month or for the first 6 months, what do I want to achieve? Like, is it really imperative that in that first month I bring in extra income? Or do I just want to see if I enjoy it, see if, you know, this is the right creative path for me? Is this going to be a way to grow my career? Like, what do I want from it when I start? My biggest fault is always I try to see 10 years down the road. And I actually think that that's something that held me back in the beginning, was like, I don't know what this would be in 10 years, if I'm even still podcasting in 10 years. How about we just focus on getting it started, have a few guests, see if you like it, see how much time is involved, and then go from there. So I think just start small and be realistic, and that can change and evolve as you get going, and that's okay. So big thing too is budgeting your time. So figure out how many hours you can realistically dedicate each week without burning out. So when I started podcasting, for example, I did 1 episode a week, and then I started some extra Patreon episodes. And at the start, I was really nervous about how much time the editing was going to take. That was my biggest fear. And as I realized that it was not nearly as hard as I thought it was going to be, I was like, okay, like I'm not at a lack for ideas or guests. And the editing is just getting faster and faster for me. So I think I can add an extra episode. Kind of my goal was to have 2 to 3 episodes a week. So once I was comfortable and in the groove, 2 months into the journey, then I altered that. So again, treat it for sure at the beginning like an appointment with yourself that you can't cancel, because consistency is a huge thing, but also be realistic. I mean, I'm driving and commuting 2 hours a day and still teaching full time. So, you know, there's only so much that I can do, and I have to give myself grace with that if I still want to have a life. So with that, kind of start simple and start lean. So I was speaking with a friend of mine who has an amazing business and wanted to start a podcast, and she invested in all this amazing equipment and hasn't started yet. And I told her, with great editing software, I'm right now just using a computer. In fact, I think without the fancy microphone that I had bought, the editing software that I use is pretty darn good. I don't know, you guys can tell me otherwise, but just start simple. What are the basic things that I need to get started? Because you don't even know if you're going to like it. And then as you get further in your journey and you say, okay, I'm going to continue this, but here's some things that would up the game for me, then down the road, maybe think about that. But you have to get started first. So, take advantage of free resources that are out there. Canva, huge one. If you're an educator, you can apply for an educator account. Just got my approval for that yesterday. My sister set me up with Squarespace for websites, which you can create email campaigns through. You can invoice people through there. Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, all of these free areas that you can utilize to start simple, but just start. And then what I'd like to get into a little bit more specifically today, and I can always sort of branch out and do separate episodes on some of these topics too, but just building a brand. And again, keeping it simple. I took a course to start my podcast, which was a simple online course called The Podcast Lab by Jenna Kutcher. Highly recommend. I wasn't even through the course yet, and I had already started my podcast, just very hands-on, practical, simple things. But she helped me kind of create my tagline, my cover for my podcast, a little bit of branding for social media, and then again, with some help behind the scenes, that branched into my website as well. So I'd like to take a little break right now, and then when we come back, I think I'll dig in a little bit more deeply on a few action steps for building a brand that can make you stand out, because I know this was an area I definitely needed assistance with. To those of you who have followed me for a while, you know that I value mental and physical wellness. Personally, I've worked with a few different coaches over the years and even been one myself. If you are looking for education and support in your own wellness journey, I would love to invite you to the wellness community I am currently in that keeps me accountable daily with my nutrition and movement. If you are a Facebook user, you can search for our free group called Team MG. This group is led by my coach, Megan Grimord, who is a certified trainer and nutrition coach. She offers lots of education and support for your wellness journey. If you want to get to know Coach Megan more, you can follow her on Instagram at all lowercase Megan, MEGAN _Grimord, GRIMORD, or even listen to her on episode 10 of the podcast. She has also created a discount code for my listeners. Just go to her website, www.team-mg.com, and enter code LessonPlan10 to get $10 off any of her premium coaching packages for the first month. Coach Megan is a busy mom like me who works full-time, so I appreciate her practicality mixed with some tough love to keep me going. While we're on our break, I thought I would answer to Ask the Teacher Anything questions. This is something you can submit questions for me to answer on my website at lifesnextlessonplan.com, or you can just DM me on social media at Life's Next Lesson Plan on Instagram or Facebook. And I thought I'd answer two questions that I've been getting recently. One was, what was the hardest part of deciding to leave the classroom? I don't know if there's one thing that made it the hardest. I know financially, I'm not eligible for retirement. I'm not 55. I get a pension at 55. I have investments that won't be ready till I'm 59 and a half. So being practical, of course, that was definitely a big factor in staying in the classroom until I just knew I was unhappy. I know you don't have to look forward to going to work every day, and there are definitely days that I still love being in the classroom. The hardest conversation I had to have was definitely with my journalism students, because we work very closely, sometimes 4 years in a row, on projects that are important to us. And, I've sort of built that program into our own, entity of what we are proud of today. So that was definitely the hardest. And then I would say the relationships with colleagues who I've known for over 20 years and worked with and spent time with and eat lunch with. I would say those are the hardest parts. I originally thought that it would be kind of losing that identity as a teacher, because I know a lot of people had mentioned that. And that's something I've definitely thought of in the years leading up to making the decision. And I think that is part of why I started this podcast, is I can still, in some ways, identify with being a teacher and still have some of those relationships. And again, topic of today's episode are, ways that you can extend your skills in a side hustle. And I think that's something that potentially I will do in my next position, which I'm still in the works of exploring. And, with this podcast and extensions of it. So that's definitely something that I had heard other people talk about was hard for them when making that decision. And so I definitely thought about that ahead of time. And then the second question I got was, how has hosting a podcast changed your perspective on life and teaching? And I love this question because, every single time I tape a guest episode, I just feel so fulfilled, no matter who the person is. Like having the time to just sit down for 30 to 40 minutes and talk with such cool people and hear what their core values are and what's important to them and just a little facet of their own life story is so awesome. And the fact that all my guests, basically, maybe with the exception of my trainer this week, are people I met through teaching. And so it definitely reinforced my perspective of really what's at the heart of teaching, which is your connections with the people you meet in your classroom or in school, and just how crucial that role is as a teacher, and just that being a teacher is always learning. And now on the flip side of, this ending of my career and starting a new fun venture, I am still teaching and I am still learning. And it just reinforces to me what's really important in life, and that is people. And taking the time to appreciate other people and their stories, and to try to share their stories with other people who you feel could benefit from them. And that's just been so amazing for me. I love, love, love these questions that I got. And so keep them coming, both either on social media, or there is a box for it on my website at lifesnextlessonplan.com. But let's jump back in here. We were going to talk about starting small with building a brand. And then to wrap up the podcast today, we'll talk a little bit about just kind of overcoming some of those fears. That's a very real thing. And then just some small actionable steps if you want to get started or start thinking about getting started. So with thinking about your brand, this somewhat overlaps parts of what we've talked about today, and beginning with just sort of defining your brand identity. So, what is your mission again? What problem do you want to solve? What value are you offering? And then who would be your target audience as a result of that? So are you targeting busy moms, young professionals, small business owners, people who spend a lot of time in their car, and then what sets you apart from competitors? So really being honest, when I think about it, and I didn't think about this until like a week ago, but one of the podcasts that I listen to, which I know a lot of people love, is Smartless. And what's cool about Smartless, it's definitely run by 3 fun celebrities, but each time they have a guest on, only one of the three hosts knows who it is. And so it's kind of a fun guessing game. I haven't been releasing who my guests are in advance. Maybe that's a detriment. I don't know. I think it's kind of fun. And so then you don't know what you're going to get until the episode comes out. But there hasn't been an episode yet that I haven't found interesting. Again, a lot of their guests are actors or actresses or people from Hollywood, but they just had somebody on the other day who was talking about AI, or someone from the government talking about some secrets that are going to be coming out in the next year or two with UFOs and things like that, mysterious drones in the sky. And so I don't know. I think their audience is so broad, and that's something that I kind of have been faulting myself for, is like, who is this really for? Because I think that my audience could be pretty broad depending on what the topic is. And a lot of people would say that's bad. But I kind of look to their podcast as it's just conversations and stories, and just going back to my previous episode on asking questions and having a curiosity conversation. I love that book for a reason, because all of those conversations with the people Brian Grazer wanted to talk to for a reason, it's all fascinating. So I kind of had those two things in mind, as the book A Curious Mind that I talked about in episode, I think that was episode 9. And then, these just entertaining but also informational conversations. So just, kind of, who do you think would be interested in what you have to offer? And then coming up with a tagline. I know I went through many iterations of titles for the podcast, and a year before I started this podcast, I had a completely different podcast title and market in mind. And I'm glad that I waited, because I'm happy with what I chose. But you want to sort of summarize your mission in one short, memorable phrase. Obviously mine is Life's Next Lesson Plan, because I'm looking into what I'm going to be doing next outside of the classroom. But sort of think about your mission to when you're starting this, like helping busy professionals find time to thrive, or affordable design solutions for small businesses. Like, what do you have to offer, just to sort of focus you on where you're going and what you have to offer. And then with that, you're probably ready to create a simple logo or whatever you might need for your business to set up your visual brand. Again, Canva is awesome. I also love Adobe Express. There's so many, again, tools out there that you can use. Biggest thing is keep it simple. 1 to 2 readable fonts, 1 to 2 colors that reflect your personality or your industry. I know one of the suggestions for podcast covers is they show up very small on a phone, and you want them to be able to read the title in this small little thumbnail. So the simpler you can keep it, kind of the better. If designing isn't for you, you can try Upwork or a handy friend or relative who you know, or reach out to schools. I know my students love doing freelance projects like this. So reach out to a teacher in a local school. They love to give their students real world experience. And sometimes it could be free or at a reasonable cost. So be smart, think of the resources that you have around you, but just keep it simple. So when you're establishing your visual brand, do you want it to be bold and bright? Do you want it to be more muted? There's an awesome tool that we use actually when we design the yearbook. I don't know if it's Colors or Coolers, but it's spelled COOLORS and that generates color palettes. So if you have, this is actually one of the things before I had my website, because Squarespace will do this for you, but you can put in your main color, like my sort of purplish color for my podcast, and then it will generate colors in the family that match with that. That's so fun. I'm sure there are other places if you just type in, color palette besides coolers.co that you could use for that. But think of, very simple photos and graphics for social media posts. I will share too, I sort of took this as a hint from, again, my marketing sister that maybe my lighting wasn't the best when I received in the mail an Alex Earl light to clip to my phone. She calls it my glamour light. Yes, it has made a huge difference when I choose to use it. Maybe a little tripod. I know I had bought one a year or two back that I got on Amazon. My students are using it now, but your phone, it clips to it like a magnet and you can wrap it around things or bend it. I can put that link in the show notes, both to the Alex Earl light and then my kind of tripods. But again, you don't even need that to get started. So just start simple. Again, look at some of your favorite brands. So, Jenna Kutcher, who does the Goal Digger podcast, who does the Podcast Lab, the class that I took, I love her website. Oh my goodness, it is gorgeous. Or Mel Robbins, or, look at some people in your niche area and kind of how they set up their colors and their style, and just try to emulate what they're already doing. Once you have that visual branding, then you can decide how you want to show up online. Do you just want to start small on LinkedIn? Do you have a Facebook account? You're comfortable using Facebook? Where is your demographic? Are they on Instagram? I have never had a TikTok, so I have not branched out to TikTok, although I've been told that I need to, but I'm already right now in over my head with all of the social media accounts that I'm managing. So I am on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and X, and try to create a handle that is the same on all of your accounts. So Life's Next Lesson Plan, try to have that be the same for all of the accounts that you use and to keep all of the graphics the same. And then again, I mentioned Squarespace, but I know I teach my students when they're building a website portfolio. They have enjoyed using Wix, W-I-X. They've also used Weebly for website creation, Google Sites for website creation, and I love Adobe Spark Page. Also free. Really easy to use, very professional, simple, and cool looking. So again, what do you want to provide people? Do you just want to have information about your brand, what services or products you offer, contact information, links to your social media, ways for them to engage with you? Start small. Pick one, go from there. Just get started. I think another really helpful piece of advice that I got at the beginning was to think of different pillars that align with your side hustle. I know Jenna Kutcher says 5 pillars, but you could start with 3. So kind of what are your other interests that you could post about or talk about? So for example, like a fitness coach definitely could post workout tips, but then also nutrition and meal ideas, client success stories, or motivational kind of quotes and tips. A freelance writer could share writing tips, some of their portfolio pieces, some insights from the industry, and client testimonials. I know when I'm trying to brainstorm ideas for my solo episodes, I think of kind of my niche and what I'm interested in and who my audience, might be, and what they might be looking for. And so some of the topics that I'll have coming up, obviously I have this side hustle conversation. We've been talking about the Sunday Scaries on my Patreon. I think I'll talk about becoming an empty nester, since that is in my future in the next 6 months. We are in the process of, we just bought a camper for the next stage of life. And so I'm going to be be learning a lot about RVing and national parks, and finally got to dust off my cross-country skis last weekend. So, what are some other areas of your life that your demographic might be interested in? And just kind of make a list, because you'll realize you have a lot more ideas than you thought. And then just start. Just be consistent, post regularly. Again, only bite off what you feel you can chew at this moment. And so maybe that's one post a week. Maybe that's one email a week. You can schedule things in advance. I know I can schedule my podcast to come out at 3 a.m. because I look at when people are listening and downloading the most, and holy cow, for some reason it's 4 a.m. So yeah, just start. And start small, okay? And then find ways to engage with your audience, right? So be authentic, think about what you have to value or what value you have to share, and the reason that you wanted to start doing this in the first place. Okay, so there's a lot more that has to go down the road with branding, but I can make that a follow-up episode. If you're interested, please tell me that you're interested in the comments or reach out to me. We could also schedule just kind of like a chat for people who are interested in getting started, and we can talk more about what happens down the road once you're started. But I'm going to stop there and just kind of get us to the wrap-up part of the episode, where we talk just a little bit about the mindset involved here. And there's definitely going to be doubt, most likely. And then how to kind of scale your side hustle. Again, these are all topics that I am glazing over here. And if you're interested, I can definitely go more in depth, and then I will give you some action steps if you are ready to get started today. So 100% imposter syndrome. Who am I to be podcasting? What if I fail? What am I thinking? What if I don't have enough time? What if I don't like it? That's normal. These are all common fears and solutions, just total transparency. I've had a couple meltdown moments, not big, but just self-doubt. And I have to lean into the people who I know who are there to support me. I'll admit that yesterday or the day before, I listened to Anna Strelow's episode 8, again, because I find her to be so inspiring to me. She also, after we recorded, shared a song with me and told me that it should be my anthem and I should play it at full blast in the morning every day. And when I'm feeling like I need that extra boost, I do that. So you don't fail at something until you quit. And if you decide to quit and you have a good reason to quit, you tried it. And that's not a failure. That is a successful try at something. It's a part of the process, right? We've all heard this. All these famous people who had experienced failure, every misstep teaches you something. Oh my goodness, some of the embarrassing mistakes that I've made in this journey already. But I get better from it, right? So you only fail if you fail to try, right? So the other thing too is I don't have enough time. That's a huge one. I hear this, with working out all the time. I don't have all the time in the world. I will admit, because I have one child who's almost an adult, I have a lot more time than I did when she was younger. But I am working full time and commuting 2 hours a day. So start small, 15 minutes. What can you do in 15-minute increments, 30-minute increments, just to get you started? I don't know where to start. Well, I gave you a couple places to start today, or go to Google, go to YouTube, go to ChatGPT, go to podcasts where people are teaching some of the things that you are interested in providing, and just watch. Maybe that's for the first week, that's how you spend your 15 minutes, is just doing a little bit of research, okay? Then set some mini goals and celebrate small wins. I'm sure my sister in North Carolina rolled her eyes at some of the first things that I thought were such big steps of mastery for me. And she was like, yeah, okay, good job. But hey, when my first podcast aired and I had edited it myself, I was proud. I celebrated. Okay. And did an episode on Patreon on this, but not everybody is going to clap for you. And some of the people you thought would clap the loudest for you are radio silent. It is about them and not about you. But I highly suggest, if you find that to be true, take a listen to my Patreon episode on that. Surround yourself with supportive people, or join online communities of like-minded people who are trying to do the same thing you are. And hey, if you're trying to start a side hustle, I'm here to cheer you on. I've started many and abandoned some and started new ones, and that's okay, right? I've gained a lot of skills and learned a lot in the meantime. So I'm here to cheer you on and help you out. And like I said, let me know what I can provide. If you want to keep going and you want more information, we can set up a community chat, or I can go a little bit more in depth on some of these things. So just keep your why from the beginning of the episode in mind. Oh, that makes me cringe even saying that, because that's kind of a phrase in teaching that we're sick of hearing. But why do you want to do this in the first place? And, think about the joy that it could bring you. I never expected the feeling that I get after taping a guest episode. Best feeling ever. And that's definitely what keeps me going. Okay, so once you get started and you start small and things start to snowball, or you want to expand, then we can talk about scaling when the time is right, okay? But just start small. So, action steps to get you out of here today and get you started. I have 3. 1, write down 3 skills or passions that you could turn into a side hustle. So these are sort of your pillars, something that people, again, come to you for, that you enjoy, that you're knowledgeable about. 2, research 1 platform or tool to start. So if you're already familiar with Canva, check out coolers.co. If you are interested in setting up a small little website, check out, Adobe Spark Page, Wix, Weebly, Google Sites, Squarespace. And then 3, dedicate a set amount of time this week that you are going to carve out and promise yourself that you're going to work on your idea, and put it in your calendar, like brushing your teeth, non-negotiable. I must do this. If it's 15 minutes when you start, that is 15 more minutes that you spent on this compared to last week. Okay? So the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Let's get cliche here. It does not have to be perfect. It just has to start. This is exactly what Jenna Kutcher said in the podcast lab. Start messy. I started my journalism career messy. I had 0 experience in yearbook. Okay? But I utilized every resource I had. I had 0 experience in podcasting. I utilized all of the resources that I could afford available to me. All right? You can do it. Millions of people have done it. If it's important to you, you will start. You got this. I will see you next week. I hope this episode got you thinking about the possibilities for starting your own side hustle and what it could bring to your life, even if you're not in the place to start now. You always have this episode to revisit when you are ready. I'll be sure to post some of the links of the valuable tools I used in my journey in the show notes, and I'd love to hear about your side hustle ideas. DM me on social media or drop a comment on our website at lifesnextlessonplan.com. Who knows, you might inspire someone else to take the leap too. So share this with someone you think might be ready to hear these words. In the meantime, remember that you can find free resources from our past episodes on our website at lifesnextlessonplan.com, as well as behind-the-scenes content on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. I have started selling my gratitude jars on Etsy as well in the Life's Next Lesson Plan Etsy shop. Keep submitting those Ask the Teacher Anything questions for me to ponder as well. There's some head scratchers coming up. As always, thanks so much for following, and I'll see you next week.